Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India will never compromise on the interests of its farmers, stresses that the next frontier for our agricultural scientists is ensuring nutritional security for all, inaugurates MS Swaminathan's Centenary International Conference in New Delhi. India fires back at Trump's additional 25% tariff move, terms it unfair, unjustified and unreasonable, asserts to take action necessary to protect national interest. Taiwanese chip-making giant TSMC exempted from Trump's to-be soon announced 100% semiconductor and chip tariff, while Apple pledges 100%, in fact $100 billion new investment, hoping to sidestep potential tariffs on iPhones. US President says there is good chance of his meeting with Vladimir Putin next week. This comes as US Envoy Steve Witkoff holds talks with the Russian President ahead of Friday's deadline for Moscow to agree to end the Ukraine conflict. Uttarakhand Chief Minister oversees large-scale rescue operation in flood-hit Dharali. Indian Air Force joins the operation amid bad weather. At least 190 people rescued so far. Met Department warns of heavy rainfall today. US President Donald Trump on Wednesday signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian exports to the US, citing India's ongoing Russian oil purchases. India has fired back at US Trump's additional 25% tariff move and said that New Delhi had already made clear its stance on imports from Russia. India's External Affairs Ministry in a statement said that the US has in recent days targeted India's oil imports from Russia. The statement added that India has made it clear to the US its position on its issues, including the fact that India's imports are based on market factors and done with the overall objective of ensuring energy security of 1.4 billion people of India. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that the US should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interest. India reiterated that these actions are unfair, unjustified and unreasonable. The statement added that India will take all necessary action to protect its national interest. After the latest order, the total US tariff on Indian goods will be 50%. While the initial duty becomes effective on August 7th, the additional levy will come into effect after 21 days. The additional tariff will be imposed on all Indian goods imported into the US, except for those goods already in transit or those meeting specific exemptions. Industries that will face the impact of these tariffs include textiles, gems and jewelry, seafood, leather and footwear, animal products, chemicals and electrical and mechanical machinery. Products exempt from these elevated tariffs are pharmaceutical items, energy resources such as crude oil, refined fuels, natural gas, coal and electricity, critical minerals and various electronic components including computer, tablets, smartphones, solid-state drives, flat panel displays and integrated circuits.
India says that the US imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that.
Donald Trump does not seem to know it all. Apparently, he has no knowledge that the United States imports Russian chemicals and fertilizers, but he still thinks that Indian economy is dependent on Russian oil. Though he does not care if New Delhi has diversified its energy needs, the rebuttal came after India claimed that US continues to import from Russia uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry, fertilizers as well as chemicals.
India says that the US imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that.
The Global Trade Research Institute on Wednesday called the United States' decision to impose an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports hypocritical, highlighting Washington's selective approach towards its allies and China when it comes to their trade relations with Moscow. The GTRI, in its statement, stated that the US had overlooked Russia's trade with the European Union and China, noting selective enforcement on India, exposing Washington's hypocrisy. According to the data given by GTRI, China purchased $62.6 billion of Russian oil in 2024, surpassing India's $52.7 billion, yet Beijing faces no punitive tariffs. It also noted that the US has turned a blind eye to EU's $39.1 billion imports from Russia in 2024, including $25.2 billion in oil, while the US itself purchased $3.3 billion in strategic materials from Russia. It stated that this selective targeting not only threatens India's $86.5 billion in annual exports to the US, but also raises questions about the credibility of US trade policy, as the move is expected to potentially reduce Indian exports to the US by 40% to 50%. Our correspondent Akshay Dongre is joining us to get us more. Akshay, we've shown detailed updates with regard to the US putting sanctions on India. Now the sanctions will be of 50% in total. Help us understand the effect of this. To what extent will it have a brunt on the Indian economy? We've also shown the specific sectors which will be affected by this. But as a journalist, what is your overall view of to what extent will it have a burden on the Indian economy?
Well, Preeti, there will be impact. So one thing is for clear, because US is one of the largest trading partner of India. And in fact, as far as the exports are concerned, they far outnumber the number of imports that we have from the US, especially the electronic goods and so on. So as far as the business entities that have been exporting stuff to the US, they will be impacted, because if the tariffs go up, the price of these commodities will also rise, and it will be easier for customers to, or rather consumers in the US, to switch to other goods, alternatives that are being provided by other countries who have lower tariffs than India, because India is now one of the highest tariff countries in the world when it comes to the US, along with Brazil. So there is going to be impact, but how much is clearly being exaggerated, not only by the US government but Donald Trump as well. If he thinks that just putting tariffs on Indian goods, it is going to have an impact, cascading effect on the Indian economy, that's not true at all. We are a 140 crore plus population, world's largest democracy, world's largest country in terms of population. So it's a consumer economy as well as manufacturing economy. So whatever we can manufacture, we can also consume. So that helps us with the issues of not being able to export to some other country, because there will be consumers even in India if the prices are better to sell in India to the Indian consumers. So that is one thing. Second, we have already signed FTA with the UK, signed FTA with several other countries. That means that the Indian goods can freely flow into those economies if they are diverted from the US. There are plans to further strengthen relationship with other countries, including the European Union and countries across the world, especially when it comes to India's vision. It's also global south, the African economies that are also on the rise. So India doesn't have a lack of options, it's not the word in Hindi that we use, majburi, that is we are forced to do something that becomes a necessity for us. It's not the case, and that is why India remains confident. If you can look at the Indian stock markets, it has been in green. It has not seen a major shake-up. That was the expectation from the US side. So that also has been the reason why the US government felt it necessary to enhance the tariff, to increase additional tariffs, because the kind of tariff that it implemented had no effect, or rather had no impact on the Indian market. So it's clearly an arm twisting tactic by the US to say that if you do not comply to our terms and comply to our trade practices, then we are going to not only put tariffs on you, but will also help the economy of your adversaries, for example Pakistan. So the situation is one where no sovereign country is ever going to, or no self-respecting country is ever going to bend knees or come to agreement with what is being dictated. We are a sovereign nation. We are a 140 crore plus population, and we can very well manage any threats that come our way, being the world's fastest growing major economy as well.
Yes, Akshay. Now, also the way the US president has targeted Brazil and India with the maximum, percentage of tariffs as compared to other countries, does it also throw light on the way the US president is targeting the countries of Global South? One, added to that, also to what extent does it also show, the threat, if I may call it, which India is posing as a leader of Global South on the global page?
While it is interested in the Global South and remaining a power that has been influencing smaller countries, developing world, the way countries are developing, which countries are developing, where political instability has to be created, where democratic instability has to be created. All of this, during the Cold War and the non-aligned movement, there has been a lot of pushback from the US side when it comes to the non-aligned movement. And now in the free world, there are other countries. Global South is rising once again, so that definitely threatens countries like the US that have maintained a hegemony. But when you look at these cases of Brazil, of India, it's highly unfortunate that personal, political, business, trade, everything has been mixed by Donald Trump. So Trump has been putting high tariffs on Brazil because it feels that even the former President Bolsonaro has not been treated properly, him being an ally of the US in Brazil. So he's meddling into domestic politics of Brazil. When it comes to India, he's meddling into our trade practices, the way we do business, the way our agriculture sector works, the way we take care of our farmers. So Donald Trump has been asking for entry into these sectors that has been denied as far as tariffs are concerned. So clearly, while there will be an impact, we can very well manage it. And as far as these arm twisting tactics are concerned, Indians have a long memory, and I'm sure they will remember this for decades to come. The way at a time when India was rising, how our president from the US tried to create turmoil in its economy, in India's economy, and also stop the growth story of the country.
All right, Akshay, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those updates. And in a major sign of growing global influence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Brazilian President Lula da Silva plans to call him on Thursday to discuss the high tariffs being imposed by the US on many countries of the Global South, including India and Brazil. President Lula is also seeking more business and trade with India. DD India's correspondent Shobhan Saxena reports from Sao Paulo.
Brazil faces 50% tariff on its exports to the US. President Lula da Silva of Brazil is refusing to call US President Donald Trump to discuss the issue. Instead, the Brazilian leader has said he is looking forward to enhancing trade relations with countries like India. On Wednesday, in an important announcement, President Lula said he would call Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India to discuss the tariff issue and also to develop a common strategy to tackle the pressure coming from Washington. President Lula's call with PM Modi is expected to be followed by discussions with other members of the BRICS group as Brazil tries to buffer the impact of rising US protectionism. The Brazilian leader enjoys a great personal chemistry with the Indian Prime Minister, who has visited Brazil twice in recent times, for the G20 summit in November 2024 and for the BRICS meeting in July this year. Brazil currently holds the BRICS presidency. It will be India's turn to host the summit in 2026. On Wednesday, in an interview with the news agency, President Lula said he saw no room for direct talks with President Trump, which he believes would turn into a humiliation for him. He also said that the President of the United States trying to dictate rules for a sovereign country like Brazil is unacceptable to him. On the other hand, President Lula is quite optimistic about close relations with India. During PM Modi's state visit to Brasilia on July 8 this year, President Lula had said his country aims to triple trade flows with India from $12 billion last year. Now all eyes of the world are on the Indian Prime Minister as he gets an important call from a strategic partner.
India's Russian oil imports follow global norms, legal, transparent and within the price cap. Yet, it's India facing the heat, while Europe and others continue quietly. As data exposes the real top buyers, questions grow from Western double standards. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya gets us more.
Funding Putin's war machine, that's the latest charge flying around. And who's the target? Not China, not Europe, India. But here is the truth no one wants to admit, because it exposes their own hypocrisy. Let's break it down and find answer to some of the questions raised. Question number 1. Is Russian oil even sanctioned? No, it is not. Russian oil isn't banned like Iran's or Venezuela's. The West, the G7, the European Union put a price cap on it. Why? So oil keeps flowing, but Moscow earns less. India buys under that cap legally, transparently, within global norms. So what's the outrage really about? Question 2. Why target India? Well, simple. It's a blame game, because when Europe and its allies keeps buying quietly, they need someone loud to point fingers at. Question number 3. Who are the actual top buyers of Russian oil? Well, from December 2022 to July 2025, China had got 47%, India only 38%, European Union and Turkey 6% each. So let's get this straight. India isn't the problem. India is part of the same market everyone else is playing in. Question number 4. What about gas? Surely India's buying that too? Well, wrong again. The biggest buyer of Russian gas is the European Union. In June 2025 alone, European Union paid over 1.2 billion euro to Russia. France, Netherlands, Slovakia, Hungary, all in. So maybe ask Brussels some tough questions too. Well, question number 5. Refined fuel. India doesn't buy it, but NATO's ally Turkey brought 26%. China and Brazil also major buyers. India, zero, zilch. Question number 6. Is India violating rules? Not even close. India buys from the private traders below the cap with legal insurance, legal shipping, everything by the book. So where is the crime? Question number 7. What if India stopped buying today? The world would pay the price, quite literally. Oil could spike beyond $200 a barrel. Fuel cost, transport, inflation, global shockwaves. India didn't break the system. India kept it from collapsing. Question number 8. Is India doing this for selfish reasons? Actually, no. Even US officials have said it. We are happy for India to keep buying oil. That was said by US Treasury Secretary. India helped stabilize global markets. That's Biden's energy advisor in 2024. India delivered. Prices didn't spike. That was US Ambassador Garcetti, May 2024. Question number 9. What about the West double standards? Here is what they won't say out loud. European Union still imports Russian crude through pipelines to Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic. Japan got an exemption till 2026. European Union's 18th sanctions package packed with loopholes for the UK, Canada, Norway, Switzerland, and yes, United States. So again, who is really funding whom? Don't fall for selective outrage. The numbers don't lie. The facts don't bend. And India won't either. This is Tapas Bhattacharya signing off.
Moving on, US President Donald Trump said that he would impose a 100% tariff on computer chips and semiconductors, but added that companies that manufacture computer chips in the country would be spared the tax. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office on Wednesday the new tariff rate would apply to all chips and semiconductors coming into the US, but would not apply to companies that had made a commitment to manufacture in the United States. The announcement came more than 3 months after Trump temporarily exempted most electronics from his administration's most onerous tariffs.
will be putting a tariff on of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. But if you're building in the United States of America, there's no charge, even though you're building and you're not producing yet in terms of the big numbers of jobs and all of the things that you're building. If you're building, there will be no charge.
Trump told also, in fact, Trump also said that he could announce further tariffs on China over its purchase of Russian oil. He also told reporters that he expected to announce more secondary sanctions aimed at pressuring Russia to end its conflict in Ukraine. Last week, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned China that it could also face new tariffs if it continued to buy Russian oil. While South Korea's top trade envoy, Yo Han-koo, announced on Thursday that major chip makers Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix will be exempt from 100% US tariffs on semiconductors. Speaking on radio, Yo emphasized that South Korea secured the most favorable tariff rates for chips under a recent trade agreement with Washington. This deal, finalized after intense negotiations, bolsters the competitive edge of South Korea's semiconductor industry, critical for global tech supply chains. The agreement follows South Korea's $350 billion investment pledge in the U.S., highlighting its strategic importance and global tariff uncertainties. Meanwhile, Asian chip-related stocks registered a sharp decline, with Tokyo Electron falling 3.4%, Renesas dropping 2.5%, and SK Hynix in Seoul plunging 2.9%, with markets awaiting Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's response in Taipei. The tariffs, part of a broader wave affecting Brazil, the EU and Taiwan, lack a clear implementation timeline but have rattled global markets, with Tokyo's Disco and Sumco also declining. While Trump announced Apple will invest an additional $100 billion in the U.S., a move which will expand the company's domestic investment commitment and also could help it sidestep potential tariffs on iPhones. The additional investment takes Apple's total pledge to $600 billion over the next 4 years. Trump announced the commitment of the White House alongside the tech giant CEO Tim Cook, calling it the largest investment Apple has made in America. U.S. President Donald Trump could meet Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin very soon, following the talks between his special envoy and the Russian leader in Moscow. The potential summit was discussed in a call between Trump and Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky that included NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and the leaders of Britain, Germany and Finland. Trump gave no indication where the meeting with Putin might take place. It would be the first U.S.-Russia leadership summit since former President Joe Biden met with his counterpart in Geneva in June 2021.
Putin and Zelensky agreed to a summit yet? And where and when would that be?
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
Donald Trump also said that his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, had made great progress in his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump, in a post on Truth Social, said that Witkoff's meeting with Putin was focused on ending the 3.5-year conflict that began in February 2022. A White House official said earlier that the meeting had gone well and Moscow was eager to continue engaging with the U.S. Witkoff met Putin for around 3 hours on a last-minute mission to seek a breakthrough in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. U.S. is still expected to impose secondary sanctions against Russia on Friday after a 10-day deadline that Trump imposed is to expire. Changing track to other news now, Thailand and Cambodia will convene a key ministerial-level meeting today as a fragile truce continues to hold almost a week after the two sides agreed on a ceasefire last Monday. Preliminary talks between Thailand and Cambodia defense officials started on Monday in Malaysia with the aim to establish mechanisms to maintain the truce and prevent future conflicts. The violence, the worst in over a decade, has killed at least 43 people and displaced over 300,000. Meanwhile, thousands of Cambodian migrant workers have fled Thailand, crossing the Ban Lam Duong border post into Battambang in Cambodia following deadly border clashes. Cambodia's Labour Ministry has reported over 750,000 returnees since July 24th, citing safety fears and alleged attacks on migrants. Cambodia's forces remain on high alert while the border region, marked by jungles and farms, stays calm. Ghana's Defence Minister Edward Oman Boama died in a military helicopter crash on Wednesday along with 4 other officials and 3 Air Force crew members. Julius Debra, President John Mahama's Chief of Staff, told a press conference that the crash in Boama, Environment, Science and Technology Minister Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed and others were killed, and it was a national tragedy.
And government extends our condolences and sympathies to the families of our comrades and the servicemen who died in service to the country. All flags are to fly at half-mast until further notice. Thank you.
Authorities did not immediately give an explanation for what might have caused the crash. Earlier, Ghana's armed forces said that radar contact had been lost with a Z-9 Air Force helicopter. Boama, a former communications minister, was tapped to serve as defense minister in January after Mahama returned to power. His replacement will take on a complex security file that includes both external and internal threats. Let's get you some weather updates. First from France, where hundreds of firefighters were battling on Wednesday to control the country's biggest wildfire in almost 80 years that has scorched a vast area. The fire, which spread very rapidly through forests and villages, has burned down at least 25 houses, forcing residents and tourists to flee. According to the authorities, 1 person has died, 2 were injured as the massive fire rages, with nearly 2,000 firefighters battling the blaze that's spreading very quickly. While Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau said so far over 15,000 hectares have burnt, that is similar to the total area that burned across all of France in several of the past years. He also added that this was the biggest area burnt by one single fire in France since 1949. In California, too, firefighters are working hard to contain the Gifford fire that has burned through parts of Los Pedros National Forest. According to California Department of Forestry and Forest Protection, the fire has burnt more than 83,000 acres and had developed from multiple smaller fires along Highway 166. Authorities said the fire is located within the Los Pedros National Forest, which spans parts of Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. Meanwhile, the National Weather Service warned that Southern California will face elevated fire danger amid gusty winds in the coming week. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted spectacularly, spewing lava and sending plumes of smoke into the air. Footage from the United States Geological Survey showed Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupting on Wednesday, with lava fountains, rivers and a pool forming inside the summit caldera. The eruption continued for several hours into the day. According to the USGS, Kilauea, one of the world's most active volcanoes, has experienced intermittent activity since late 2024. Recent USGS updates noted the opening of a new fissure, increased lava fountain, and also clusters of small earthquakes in the area. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, Made in India Dhanush artillery gun system played crucial role during Operation Sindoor. Stay tuned as we get you a report by our correspondent from Dras at the LOC. Team of neurosurgeons at India's PGI MER Chandigarh successfully performed a groundbreaking brain surgery on a 2-year-old child. 3-day India International Handwoven Expo begins at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD Indian News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India will never compromise on the interest of its farmers, stresses that the next frontier for our agricultural scientists is ensuring nutritional security for all, inaugurates MS Swaminathan Centenary International Conference in New Delhi. India fires back at Trump's additional 25% tariff move, terms it unfair, unjustified and unreasonable, asserts to take actions necessary to protect national interest. Taiwanese chip-making giant TSMC exempted from Trump's to-be-soon announced 100% semiconductor and chip tariff, while Apple pledges $100 billion new investment, hoping to sidestep potential tariffs on iPhones. US President says there is good chance of his meeting with Vladimir Putin next week. This comes as US envoy Steve Witkoff holds talks with the Russian president ahead of Friday deadline for Moscow to agree to end the Ukraine conflict. Uttarakhand Chief Minister oversees large-scale rescue operation in flood-hit Dharali. Indian Air Force joins the operation amid bad weather. At least 190 people rescued so far. Met Department warns of heavy rains today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today inaugurated MS Swaminathan Centenary International Conference at ICAR Pusa in New Delhi, where he said that government has recognized farmers' strength as the foundation of the nation's progress. He also stressed that India will never compromise on the interests of its farmers. Addressing the gathering, Prime Minister Modi said that Dr. Swaminathan went beyond biodiversity and gave the visionary concept of bio-happiness.
ये अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। और मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। आज भारत तैयार है।
On the occasion, the Prime Minister also released a commemorative coin and a centenary memorial stamp dedicated to Professor MS Swaminathan. Father of India's Green Revolution, Professor Swaminathan is credited with saving millions of people from starvation through his landmark work on enhancing productivity and production of wheat and rice crops during the 1960s and 70s.
साथियों, डॉक्टर स्वामीनाथन ने भारत को खाद्यान्न में आत्मनिर्भर बनाने का अभियान चलाया, लेकिन उनकी पहचान हरित क्रांति से भी आगे बढ़कर थी। वो खेती में केमिकल के बढ़ते प्रयोग और मोनोकल्चर फार्मिंग के खतरों से किसानों को लगातार जागरूक करते रहे। यानी एक तरफ वो ग्रेन प्रोडक्शन बढ़ाने का प्रयास कर रहे थे और साथ ही उन्हें एनवायरनमेंट की, धरती मां की भी चिंता थी। दोनों के बीच संतुलन साधने और चुनौतियों का समाधान करने के लिए उन्होंने एवर ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन का कंसेप्ट दिया। उन्होंने बायो विलेज का कंसेप्ट दिया, जिसके जरिए गांव के लोगों और किसानों का सशक्तिकरण हो सकता है।
Prime Minister Modi also gave away the MS Swaminathan Award for Food and Peace to Professor Admola A. Edenle of Nigeria. Professor Edenle has led 15 years of pioneer research on genetically modified organisms in Africa. The award included a citation and a cash prize of $25,000. In other news, Chief Minister of the Indian northern state of Uttarakhand, Pushkar Singh Dhami, has been continuously monitoring the rescue operation in Dharali. Chief Minister Dhami met with National Disaster Response Force, State Disaster Response Force and administrative officials in Uttarkashi on Thursday morning and reviewed the progress. He also instructed to make the Heli rescue operations started in the affected areas from this morning, more effective. Dhami also ordered to monitor the supply of drinking water and food grains along with the early restoration of roads, communication and electricity. He also appreciated the dedication of all of the rescue teams. Earlier, Dhami held a late-night meeting with the rescue officials of NDRF and Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force in Uttarkashi.
अब ये जो धराली में आपदा आई है उसके लिए हमारी टीमें लगभग 4 टीमें हैं, लेकिन चूंकि रास्ता जैसा सबको मालूम है कि सड़क टूटी होने की वजह से नहीं पहुंच पाए हैं, लेकिन कल जो हेलीकॉप्टर्स के माध्यम से 35 लोग पहुंच चुके हैं और अभी हमारे जो मॉर्निंग से आप देख रहे हैं हेलीकॉप्टर्स जाने शुरू हैं, उसमें हमारे लोगों की आवागमन शुरू हो गई है। साथ ही वहां पर जो कम्युनिकेशन का इशू था, आज सुबह ही हमारा जो एक QDA होता है उसने भी काम करना शुरू कर दिया। कुछ सैटेलाइट फोन भी हमारे वहां पे काम कर रहे हैं, जो कि इस ऑपरेशन में एक बहुत बड़ी मददगार साबित होगी।
Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami also held a meeting with district magistrates of the state and instructed them to shift the people living on the banks of rivers and drains to other places. The Indian Air Force has also initiated a joint rescue and relief operation as flash flood in Uttarkashi's Harsil has left the region isolated. Air Force stations in northern state of Uttar Pradesh's Agra and Bareilly were activated overnight to load relief and rescue material and to coordinate with the Indian Army personnel for deployment in the rescue missions. Despite dense fog and persistent rainfall hampering flight operations in the morning hours, the IAF stated that a brief improvement in visibility is being utilized to conduct the sorties. Over 200 people have been rescued from Dhaarauli following the devastating cloudburst that triggered massive flash floods and also landslides in the area. The rescue and relief operations in the affected areas are in full swing. That is being carried out with the help of Army, NDRF, ITBP, SDRF, Uttarakhand Police and local administration. The work of opening the closed roads is also going on continuously and efforts are on to normalize life there. The Met Department has forecast heavy rainfall to continue over Uttarakhand. Meanwhile, the district administration of Uttarakhand and Uttarkashi, in fact, have announced a holiday for all government and private schools and Anganwadi centres in the district in the wake of prediction of heavy rainfall in the district on Thursday. All right, DD India's Dr. Kanchan Negi joins us from Dehradun. Kanchan, help us get the latest on the current situation there. We also believe that some people were missing. To what extent have the rescue teams met with success? And also get us more on to how is the weather predicted in the next few days?
Yeah, sure. So now, as far as the weather is concerned, I would just like to say that in the morning it was a clear sky, but in the whole state, it's going to be cloudy and the rains are depicted in the coming days. It's going to be raining. So basically, the recent cloudbursts and flash floods in Uttarkashi, this is, I think, a stark reminder of the delicate balance that exists between nature and human activity, especially in the fragile Himalayan region. And as far as the rescue operation is concerned, everybody is on toes. And the entire team, not only the government departments, but the NGOs as well, and the volunteers also have come up to help and support the victims. Actually, all the localites out there are really, they're heartbroken. And this time, it's not only the monetary support, but also the emotional support, which the localites do expect from each one of us. And having said that, I would just like to say that it is not for the first time that in Uttarakhand, such kind of natural calamity has happened. What our government is really working hard for the reverse migration as well. So the people who are here, the localites should be, they should have the work opportunities in itself and they should not leave the hilly terrain. But the irony is that, the geographical condition of our state is such that in the hilly areas, we do come across such kind of tough time, but I personally feel that from a scientific standpoint, this was undoubtedly a climate-induced event here, where a result of erratic and intense rainfall patterns that are becoming increasingly common due to climate change. So on one hand, where our government is actually looking forward to the development aspects, and on the other side, such kind of calamity has really broken everybody's heart. Regarding the rescue operation, again, the entire teams are actually working together, and It's the NDRF, SDRF team, the government departments, the health department, and in fact, all the army people. So we all are working as a team, and till now we have like rescued quite many of people, and the others are also being rescued as of now. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Kanchan, thank you so much for joining in with those updates from Dehradun.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, getting your other updates. India's artillery passed with flying colours in Operation Sindoor with Pakistan. The Made in India Dhanush artillery gun system is in service with the Army's artillery unit since 2019. Our correspondent Nandita Dagar travelled to Dras at the LOC and filed this report.
The Dhanush artillery gun system, completely made in India, designed and developed in India. Designed by our DRDO and manufactured by ordnance factories. This howitzer gun with 155mm caliber has a range of almost 50 kilometers, and therefore on our northern borders with China and on our western borders with Pakistan, Dhanush artillery gun system can be a game changer. The barrel of this 155mm caliber howitzer can rotate 360 degrees, means like that, completes a full circle. And of course, it can lower or increase its angle. It has an angle of high angle of above 60 degrees. It moves not just self-propelled, but also it is towed by the field artillery tractors, which are vehicles which will tow it. So on the towed mode and self-propelled mode, a computer on board, inertial navigation system, so that it can give the coordinates of the target very, very accurately. An example of Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, as we say in Hindi, or self-reliant India. Made in India howitzer Dhanush can be a game changer in the next war that India fights. You must have seen this Polaris all-terrain vehicle on TV. The army has acquired this Polaris all-terrain vehicle for climbing steep gradients. Up to 40 degrees of incline can be climbed by the army, where its usual Mahindra Scorpios and its gypsies cannot traverse that terrain. This Polaris ATV vehicle, they were imported earlier, but now they are being built in India by JSW Industries with camera person Manmohan in the Dras sector. This is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
Philippines President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. delivered a foreign policy address in New Delhi on Wednesday, which was hosted by the Observer Research Foundation. The Philippine president underscored the centuries-old ties between the Philippines and India, emphasizing their strategic partnership and shared commitment to a free, open Indo-Pacific. Marcos echoed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of both nations as friends by choice but partners by destiny. Advocating for global governance, structures resilient to geopolitical shocks. He also reinforced cooperation in defense, security and economic growth. The address was part of Marcos' state visit. Philippine President Marcos Jr. is in India from 4th of August till 8th of August.
In a far different and indisputably multimodal world, our respective journeys converge once again. We remain bastions of democracy, but this time, we are also amongst the most ascendant economies. The Philippines is on the cusp of upper middle income status, attainable as early as next year. India, of course, can be proud of your spectacular rise under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi and the intellectual gravitas, innate talent, and industry of Indian people, rising to become the world's fourth largest economy and the country wielding enormous global influence.
A team of neurosurgeons at PGI-MER, Chandigarh, successfully performed a groundbreaking brain surgery on a 2-year-old girl from Amroha, Uttar Pradesh, who was losing her vision. The doctors removed a giant 4.5 centimeters brain tumor through the child's nose, a procedure considered one of the most challenging in pediatric neurosurgery. Additional professor of neurosurgery, Dr. Dandapani says that the tumors larger than 4 centimeters, called giant tumors, have never undergone surgery through the nose at 2 years of age, except once before at Stanford. However, performing this surgery on a small child less than 4 years of age is challenging, he said.
क्रेनियोफेरिंजियोमा था, उसमें यूनिक चीज ये था कि वो ट्यूमर का साइज वो जाइंट था, इवन अडल्ट्स में हम क्रेनियोफिरिंजियोमा जो ट्यूमर है या कोई भी ट्यूमर 4 सेंटीमीटर के ऊपर हम जायंट ट्यूमर्स कहते हैं, और जायंट ट्यूमर्स में मोर्टेलिटी मॉर्बिडिटी रिस्क बहुत ज्यादा होता है। और इतनी छोटे बच्चे जो 2 साल का है ये बहुत रेयर है, और जायंट ट्यूमर्स इस उम्र में नाक से ऑपरेट किया हुआ ये दुनिया का दूसरा बच्चा है।
All right, let's get to other updates now. India is celebrating the 11th National Handloom Day today. On the occasion, the 3-day India International Handwoven Expo begins at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi from today. The Handloom Export Promotion Council is organizing the B2B event, which aims to showcase the rich legacy, innovation and global potential of Indian handlooms, providing a platform for weavers, exporters, international buyers and other stakeholders. About 100 overseas trade visitors from prominent textile importing countries and 200 exhibitors from all over India are participating in the expo. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, 5-day Naima Nepal Mobility Expo begins in Kathmandu. Companies from India, China, Japan and the UK set to showcase their innovations. South Korean forward Son Heung-min has joined Los Angeles FC in a record-breaking Major League Soccer transfer. And cultural showcase lights up Avaza city of Turkmenistan.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News. Let's get you updates from the world of business now. Trump said on Wednesday that he had started the process of interviewing candidates for an open position on the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors and said the candidate pool was probably down to 3 choices. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump praised 2 candidates with their first name as Kevin as the top contenders. Trump is considering White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett and former Fed Governor Kevin Walsh for the job. Walt Disney reported strong quarterly results on Wednesday, surpassing expectations and raising its annual profit forecast driven by its streaming business. The company projects $1.3 billion in operating income from its direct-to-consumer segment, up by 30%. Disney announced a multi-year NFL draft rights extension, expanding coverage across Disney+, Hulu, ESPN and ABC starting 2026. Additionally, ESPN secured deals with the NFL and WWE for its $29.99 per month streaming service, launching August 21st. The NFL deal includes acquiring the NFL network for a 10% ESPN equity stake, pending regulatory approval. These moves aim to bolster Disney's streamlining growth, offsetting declines in traditional television with new NFL draft-focused content planned. The NIMA Nepal Mobility Expo 2025 kicked off on Wednesday in Kathmandu with Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Bishnu Prasad Patel inaugurating it. The inaugural event witnessed the minister sharing that the government has prioritized expanding and widening road infrastructure across the country to make it more vehicle-friendly, with connectivity being taken up as a national campaign. Organized by the Nepal Automobile Importers and Manufacturers Association, the expo aims to promote public-private cooperation and policy dialogue for sustainable mobility and technological innovation. Companies from India, China, Japan, Korea and the United Kingdom are participating in the 5-day expo.
The electric vehicle market in Nepal isn't that big currently, but we have seen recent big interest from a lot of people, especially with rising fuel costs and whatnot. So having an electric vehicle like the F-77 is an amazing experience as well.
We are only offering ICE vehicles to the Nepalese customer. But now that waves we have launched waves in India, and then the response is overwhelming there. We have got a very good numbers month on month. So we are expecting the same market in Nepal also.
And from business, we now turn focus to sports. South Korean forward Son Heung-min has joined Los Angeles FC in a record-breaking Major League Soccer transfer, ending a decade-long stint at Tottenham Hotspur. Financial details of the transfer were not disclosed by either club, but The Athletic reported Los Angeles FC paid a fee in the region of $26.5 million for the 33-year-old Son, who joined Tottenham from Bayer Leverkusen in 2015, led the North London club to their first trophy in 17 years with a win over Manchester United in the Europa League final in May. The former Spurs captain made 454 appearances for the team and scored 173 goals, winning the Premier League Golden Boot in the 2021-22 season. Son, capped 134 times by South Korea, joins the Los Angeles FC after an emotional farewell to Spurs during a friendly against Newcastle United at Seoul World Cup Stadium. Former Germany and Bayern Munich forward Thomas Müller has signed a season-long deal with Major League Soccer side Vancouver Whitecaps. Müller, who turns 36 next month, decided to leave Bayern at the end of last season after 25 years with the German champions, helping them win 13 Bundesliga titles and 2 Champions League trophies. Müller has signed for the rest of the 2025 season, with the club holding an option to keep him in 2026 as a designated player, a status that allows MLS teams to pay top salaries outside the league's salary cap. Müller made 131 appearances for Germany, scoring 45 goals, and was instrumental in their 2014 World Cup triumph. The playmaker helped Bayern reach the Club World Cup quarterfinals in the United States last month, where they lost to eventual runners-up Paris Saint-Germain. The US Open on Wednesday announced that $90 million in prize money will be on offer at this year's final major, marking the largest purse in tennis history, up by 20% from 2024. The US Open prize pool is up from $75 million in 2024, the previous highest ever purse. Men's and women's singles winners will earn $5 million each, up from $3.6 million last year. The increase in prize money comes as the sport's leading players have been in discussions with each of the 4 major tournaments in a bid to receive a higher percentage of the revenue at the US Open, Wimbledon, French Open and Australian Open. India's Test captain Shubman Gill and all-rounders Ben Stokes and Wayan Mulder have earned nominations for July's ICC Men's Player of the Month award. Shubman Gill amassed 567 runs at an impeccable average of 94.5 in 3 of the 5 tests played between India and England in July. He played a leading role in India's record-breaking win at Edgbaston, where he scored a monumental 269 in the first innings, followed by 161 in the second. England's captain Ben Stokes showcased his all-round brilliance in the high-pressure India versus England series as well. He scored 251 runs at an average of 50.2 and took 12 wickets at an average of 26.33. Wayan Mulder delivered a record-breaking all-round performance in South Africa's 2 Test series against Zimbabwe. He scored 531 runs across the 2 matches at an astonishing average of 265.5. Mulder smashed an unbeaten 367, which is the highest individual score in South African Test history. Delegates at the 3rd UN Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries enjoyed a vibrant cultural evening in Turkmenistan's Avaza National Tourist Zone. The event featured a colorful exhibition and a concert celebrating unity and diversity with artists from Turkmenistan and beyond. A full cultural program continues through the week, culminating in a grand gala concert on August 8th. Alright, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.